QEP project for the sophomore and junior years is strengthening the connection between learning and service, making that more integrated. And I know that we've had this program for 10 years, and people have sometimes started up doing service and then backed off of it, or haven't ever really known how to get it started. And so we want to start having a conversation about how can we make this easier for faculty? How can we make this better for them so that it's on top of what you already do. We know that. And so how can we make this more seamless for you so that you can put together service projects that are related to your class, that come out of your class in a way that doesn't put a big extra burden on you. So this is really a discussion, so we need you to raise questions and ask questions. And Mike Hayes is the, I think everybody knows him, but he wears so many hats. So Mike is actually over the service learning. He's over the Leonard Center. So he's the person who supervises how the work at the Leonard Center gets done. We also have William Lamb, who's the person who directs the Leonard Center, so that it's in Mike's sector. So we have the hands-on and all that going on with this. So we need to know what you've tried, or what you would, if you want to say what you would like to do, and how can we work that out. We just want to have this. We want to have an ongoing conversation around this issue and around this concern for faculty. Try to find ways to make it work better for you. Try to find ways for, maybe there's some things we haven't articulated, so you don't know what our perspective is on this. So whatever you have to say, Mike and I are here to figure it out. Yeah.
I was just going to say, for Beth and I, new faculty, if you could give us some type of foundation here of when you talk about service learning. I mean, we just, nursing is so full of service learning. I mean, what are the university's expectations versus what I would already require or expect of my nursing students? I mean, is it within the classroom, without, just if you'll give us an overview, please.
Sure. There's an 80-hour requirement that students have to complete for graduation. With the recent shift in the curriculum, basically the bulk of the hours will be required without any academic credit. We used to give 2 hours of service learning credit, but now it's kind of a tacked on graduation requirement. Every student, though, has to complete Gateway, and within Gateway they have to do 10 hours of service embedded in that course. And every student has to do REL 200, which is now University 101B or something like that. It's part of this new freshman sequence. REL 200, basically the implication was it's kind of a sophomore level course, but now it's going to be in this sequence. So each student, without any other service embedded courses, is going to complete 20 of their hours tacked on to those 2 core courses. The other things are done outside of the curriculum for most students. What they do is they have to write a 2-page reflection paper for every 10 hours of service that they do. The service has to be approved before they do it by the Leonard Center, or it can be service embedded, which several of the faculty here in the room do teach service embedded courses. But again, for the most part, the students do it outside of the classroom, and then the staff in the Leonard Center will read those reflection papers. The stuff that's done in class, historically we've tried to approve projects that took students off campus. However, the last few years we have allowed a few projects that have been based on campus, and those specifically have been areas where we have high need in terms of maybe tutoring students in certain subjects, particularly where we couldn't pay all the tutors that we needed. But that would have to be supervised very closely by a faculty member. So that's kind of the overview.
So if we did an activity off campus, we participated in a health fair, or we went to a soup kitchen or something, do we have to have prior approval through the Leonard Center to use it as a service project for our nursing students, or is that?
If we were to service it, embed your class, for instance, if you had a principles of nursing or an introduction to nursing, of the nursing profession course, and you submitted your syllabus, a service learning committee would review that and then give you feedback on that. And typically, if that were the standard approach in the course, then you'd never have to get the approval again.
Okay.
Yeah. But those are the types of things that we would approve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are really two things, I don't know that we've ever really made this clear, but there's a service embedded class, which is when you have your syllabus actually approved by the service learning committee. And it's a learning objective in that class, and the activity is spelled out in the class. And then that class will say it's literature 403, then everybody who ever teaches that class is a service embedded class. So the responsibility for service falls on that teacher to map something out and plan it for that class. For those kinds of classes, it's part of the requirement for the class, it's not an add-on, everybody has to do it. And it's usually really part of the learning in that class, so, you know, it's an application of what you're doing in class that is for service learning. PR, for example, has sometimes developed a project where they do a PR campaign for a local nonprofit. And that's part of what they're doing in that class, but their end project is not just a project for the class, it's a project that serves that local nonprofit. So then, on the other hand, there's service enhanced classes where, for example, in my grammar class, I used to give them an option, it's not a requirement, but an option in that class. We went to Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy, which is it's all African American students in that school. It wasn't by design, but it's in a project. So they're preparing to take the ACT, and many of them have limited experience with standard English. They never hear it. So my grammar class went over there, and we took the specific standards that are taught in the ACT and went over those with them in a workshop. So my students are teaching grammar, they're learning grammar while they're teaching it, but it's also got a useful outcome for the students who are preparing for the ACT, which is a foreign world for them. But it was a class of 50 people. We couldn't take everybody over there. They didn't need 50 people. So it was just people who were particularly interested in doing that thing, needed service hours, wanted to do that. So it wasn't the whole class. That class is not service embedded. This was just an add-on thing, which was an optional, they could pick some assignments, that was one of them. And so some of them picked that. Some of the people actually worked on developing the materials for it, and other people took the materials over there and taught it. So, you know, it reached a little bit broader range. But that class, you don't have to do service in that class, and that's not a class that's service embedded. So there's more than one way to figure out how to work out service in your class.
For a service enhanced class though, can you give them a grade for what they did, or is that just only in the service embedded class?
No, it was like, oh, here are your three choices for an assignment. You can do an annotated bibliography of blah, blah, blah sources, and here's how many pages it has to be. Or you can do, I can't remember what the other possible assignment was, or you can do this. So it's a choice of things in there. And they also had some other service options, but that was the one that most of them took.
Is in a service embedded course, is there a minimum number of hours?
Yeah, 10, and we also have granted permission for up to 20.
Okay.
So we would be totally open to 10 or 20.
So you have to meet the 10-hour threshold.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, if it's 9, you know.
Yeah. That's what I guess you're saying.
Sure.
Okay.
I have a couple of things I'd love to run past you. I don't know if this is the time to do it, but
Sure.
for instance, I teach playwriting, and in Intro to Playwriting, we do a festival of new plays. My playwrights write the plays, and then I bring around actors and directors who are not in the class, and designers, and all these people, probably 60 people, to put on this festival. Well, they're volunteering their time. They don't get credit, the people around the class. But then the students who are in the class are also, putting in 20, 30 hours at least above and beyond normal classroom time to make this festival happen. Is that something that could ever count?
Yeah, it sounds
mean,
like
it's-
it has a great opportunity.
Okay.
We would, as a committee, I don't want to speak for the entire committee, but as a service learning committee, we would want to know maybe some details of the festival in terms of who's invited,
Right.
you know, who's the audience.
Okay. And then there's another project I'm doing right now with 3 students. I say students, it's not a class, but we're interviewing people who've come out of prison to create a play, a documentary play, and it's supposed to be service. I mean, in the sense that we think the act of them telling their stories is a healing thing for them, and then for the community who sees the play, we hope. So that seems definitely possible.
Yes. Yeah, in fact, one of the model capstone projects we had was several years ago when Joel Kaling was teaching the capstone for the communication students. And what they did is they went to some local nursing homes and they interviewed residents, and they also gathered artifacts from those residents, talked with some of their relatives on occasion, and then they put together films. And what they did is they told the story, they put the DVDs together, they made multiple copies of the DVDs, and we tried to bring them and their families to campus. We had one big party, fed them and all that kind of good stuff, and shared with them their DVDs. So it sounds very similar to that. Again, that was a phenomenal project, very labor intensive, obviously a lot of stuff going on, but yeah, it was a fantastic project, so it sounds very similar.
Yeah, one of the problems that I teach benevolence lab, and the first day we go around and kind of say, you know, what's this all about? And the students are really picking up on this whole thing about on campus, off campus. And one of several comments I've got from students is, well, Lee just needs the PR. And, you know, it's hard for me also, kind of, in terms of this dichotomy. It kind of reminds me of growing up as a missionary kid. You got to go someplace to do missions. You can't do it at home. Mother Teresa says you should be doing it at home before you do it anyplace else. And, you know, this by creating this kind of off-campus, on-campus kind of dichotomy or difference. I understand the on-campus, but it's so hard to tell those students, you know, you got to serve the people you're with as much as the people that you don't know, people you do know, your own family, as people out there. I really wish you guys would kind of rethink, at least not make an issue with kind of the on-campus. I mean, I understand that you got to evaluate each project wherever they are, but to make this, because the students are really, that's the one kind of negative thing I get from them to say, we're just doing this because we believe these people out there that need to be on that. And you probably heard that too. So, you know, I think every project, I mean, personally, I think every project should be evaluated by the committees and not necessarily what the location is, just in terms of the service in and of itself.
I do think whenever it can be connected to the discipline, where the student is seeing that they're using what they're learning in class as service, it's such a win-win, then I don't think it's as much a PR thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the academic piece of it, obviously doing the required courses on the freshman and sophomore level, at least to this point, I think they're getting kind of a basic introduction, but truly the integration in the discipline. You know, we wouldn't assume for a second that they're getting that kind of integration without having a service experience that's tied to what they're learning in their junior and senior years primarily.
I think our goal on the academic side of this, our goal for service learning, what we want them to lead with is understanding how they can take what they've learned in their major and whatever else and apply it to the problems of the world, whether those problems be next door or in Indonesia, that doesn't matter. But just knowing that they have skills that somebody in the world needs and that they can apply those skills to that need without expecting to be paid for it. I think that's kind of the other thing. So I think in order to get there, we either leave them on their own to figure that out. So what do I do with an English major to make the world better? Or we, I mean, I think some of us do have good service learning projects that apply what they're learning. So they're learning it better, actually. It's enhancing their learning, but they're also making the world a better place. But I think we have to help them make that connection. I think we can't do the 10 hours in the benevolence lab and in the, 10 hours in REL 200, and then let them figure out for themselves, how do they use their skills to make the world a better place. So I'm hoping as part of the QEP, we can strengthen that connection.
So in the Learner Center, or in the committee, what are the criteria by which you accept or reject?
The criteria basically come down to, historically, it has been off-campus. And let me go ahead and address that while I'm kind of on that. Basically, that's based on what the faculty originally approved about 10 years ago. And we've tried to toe the line on that for the most part, because most of the research says that the students really need to get off campus to be exposed to something that's going to create a little disequilibrium for them. I think the parallel that I like to paint is, it's similar to the Global Perspectives Committee, where somebody needs to leave their culture to really experience kind of the discombobulating nature of being outside of what they're accustomed to. That's kind of the same mentality that we've had as a committee. I think the other requirements are that there needs to be some type of reciprocity, and I know there's some music faculty in here, and that's been something that's been kicked around like a dead horse, and kicked again, and kicked again, and spurred and kicked again. So, but here's always been kind of the dividing line. It's okay if people go and perform for people. The issue is we want there to be some kind of interaction, other than just, I'm up here, for instance, I'm singing to you, I pack my bags and I leave. We understand that there's value in that performance. We totally understand there's value in that performance, but again, historically there's been this issue of reciprocity. There also needs to be evaluation, what the Carolyn said about putting learning objectives in the syllabi, but also making sure that there is appropriate evaluation of the activity. Are they going to reflect? We also like to encourage people to preflect. It seems that learning actually gets enhanced when people preflect about what they're about to do and how it ties together. And then we do need some critical reflection on the other end. The critical reflection can take different forms. Obviously, they can write about it, or one of the things that we've really been seeing that's been effective the last few years is just good oral reflection. And we actually had a student write on a reflection for an urban outreach experience that we do every semester. And he said, we serve together, why can't we critically reflect together? And guess what, in those small groups that we manage, the critical reflection and then bouncing ideas off of each other has been really rich. So again, it comes down to a number of hours, again, historically, again, off campus. There's got to be the reflection activity, and we want there to be something, again, the reciprocity piece is huge.
We've just got to follow up on that. I mean, the campus can be used for community activities. I mean, it's like the filling out of income tax forms, the
Sure.
business department does. I mean, obviously, they get credit for that, right?
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
in fact.
And when you bring groups on campus, or if we have an ESL or TESOL center, where they're bringing people from the outside. So a lot of times the community it comes on campus and does. In the archaeology, we do archaeology camps with kids and stuff, with Boy Scouts and stuff. We bring them onto campus. So, that thing starts getting kind of morphed, it gets a little kind of hazy, and it's kind of the off-campus, on-campus, because we are part of the community, very much.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we moved that fence post back a little bit, because we have been approving those. For instance, students who work at Great Strides, they're running the walk to raise money for cystic fibrosis. They get service credit because it's not an event that serves lead people, it's an event that serves the community. Yeah.
I've had service learning events on campus just from the standpoint of convenience. The Ocoee Middle School Jazz Ensemble, they don't really have the facilities to do the breakout sessions that we need, whereas we do here. And kids walk from there to here on a day like today. So I think that those have been approved, that's been successful.
I think the reason that we set that up in the beginning was we didn't want the service to be, we didn't want this to become a work college where we don't hire anybody, kids mow our grass and, they sharpen our pencils, and we don't have any physical plant staff because kids are mopping the bathroom floors and we're doing it all for service. So, I mean, we didn't want that to happen, but I think the line may have been drawn a little bit more firmly than we had anticipated when we kind of first set that up. Because the margin between we and the community is porous, so sometimes they come here, sometimes we go there, sometimes we are the community, sometimes our kids are in the community. So I think the border is a little bit more porous than we imagined, but that's what we were trying to avoid. Yeah, you can get service hours, come wash my car.
I think it depends on the value of the service too, because I've had a service embed course forever, but it's better for the kids to go to Black Tower to teach the beginning instrumental students there, because our students need to see what it's like to be in the music classroom and to go to the school. Hopefully we're preparing beginning band directors, you know. So that's why that service is more important off campus. But what Alan does is also really, really cool, because he gets to bring these kids who really want to be into jazz, and his jazz students can teach and do things, which is maybe better for
Yeah, very much so.
pretty cool.
Another criteria you haven't mentioned is that you can't serve a family member.
Good. Yeah.
Which I also have really some problems with. Because we have some students that have some very severe handicap and some real needs in their own. And, you know, and this benevolence lab again, I'm trying to say, you know, benevolence is every day, it's every place, it's in your family, it's in your world. I understand that, but
It sends a mixed message.
it really does. It's always out there. It's always somebody else. It's always somebody across the track. It's always somebody that's less fortunate. Rather than seeing, you know. And when you teach that class and you're trying to say service is every moment, every day, and here's how you get hours, it gets to be tough.
That's
You
what I
know,
understand.
I've always thought that this was one of the real strengths of our program, is having this. And my feeling is the overall objective is not for them to do service just while they're here, but to learn, to have the servant heart. And one of the things I've been excited about is with the Leonard Center has had them do these pledges when they leave. Have we had any follow-up at all to see
See, they're keeping their pledge.
if
Give us back that pin.
if they really have learned and followed through with that when they leave? Have we done anything at all to?
We've not done anything systematically. I can tell you that over 75% of them over the past 7 years have signed the pledge, which is phenomenal compared to other institutions. Other institutions, some of them kind of take more of a, listen, you're going to sign this thing, but ours is totally voluntary. In fact, it's almost not in your face enough in a sense. We'll have a table up at graduation clearance. Hey, want to sign this? I hate forced service. It's not of Jesus or whatever they say. So, but yeah, over 75%, and more recently it's been up around 80%. So almost 4,000 students in the past 7 years have signed the form.
Because we know that, I mean, we know in our heart that they're getting a lot out of it, but we don't have any data to show that. And not just service learning, but we haven't really assessed what impact does your global studies have on you, what impact does your study abroad have on you. And we've looked at how, did you like this trip? Did you have good food? But we haven't ever looked at how did this change your life. The people in college ed have done this a little bit with student teachers who did their student teaching abroad and the long-term effects of that on their disposition as teachers. But we haven't, one thing I hope we can do is be a little bit more thoughtful about, okay, when they graduate, what is it we want them to do and be, and how can we find out whether we got them there or not? What else, how do these elements impact them? And it's kind of hard to assess their service learning if we don't have more of it embedded in the curriculum. Because they do a lot of different things, and what are our goals, and what are our goals with our discipline for them in service learning and in both perspectives. And again, some disciplines lend themselves to this. You almost can't not do it. But some disciplines, I think we need to bring a little bit more creativity to it, that How can we make this work?
I know when I taught the REL 200 lab, one of the things that I always said to my students, and I felt this very strongly, is the effectiveness of that class cannot be measured in this class, but be measured 10, 15, 20 years from now. See how you respond to the community.
Do you know how many study abroad trips have service hours that are attached to them?
It does vary. Some of it will depend on the trip leader, but I think we've had trips as high as 10 or 12 a year. And then we've had trips that maybe particularly those that are a little more missions focused, which are service by nature. So I think we've had as many as about 12 in a year.
Because I know even like Steve Swindle in South Africa trip, he does that every time he takes a trip, he does the weekend trip.
Yeah, would that be a valuable thing to develop some kind of a format of how to embed service into the whole activity trip? I think that would really be, because I know the whole emphasis when I take a missions trip is I want to get the cultural experience, but then they get the cultural experience so they can better service the people that they're going to. So we need to probably come up with a move this how to do it, to local trips that would be good.
Yeah, we've done that on a case-by-case basis up till now, but I think it's a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful idea. But we'll work on that.
I'm bad.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
And 50-50 chance.
You were so close. No. We're trying to brainstorm some ideas, what we can do in nursing. So a missions trip, if they went out and they worked in like a health clinic or developed a health clinic, that would count as like service hours.
Most definitely. In fact, Milton's the poster child for the medical missions trip. But if you want to share with her what you do, a great opportunity.
Basically, our medical mission trips, we've had Honduras and Guatemala, et cetera. We've done clinics 8 to 10 hours a day for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how long we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And we certainly felt that their interaction with treating the people and stuff was service.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 20 hours for that type of a thing.
Okay. And the other thing I was thinking about was when nurses graduate and they go out into the workforce, they're paired up with a preceptor. And there's a reputation in nursing of nurses eating their young, where they treat that new nurse very badly, or very poorly. If we connected a senior nursing student with a freshman nursing student and they did a mentorship, would that count as a service? It's on campus, but I want to prepare them when they graduate, and to be able to precept somebody else someday in the workforce.
I think the committee would be open to it, particularly since that's in the spirit of the ice that we broke about a year ago. Actually, I think it's a watershed decision for the committee because what was going on is there weren't enough political science students, or there wasn't really enough money to pay enough political science students, upper division students, who could tutor the younger students. And because it was well-described, well-defined, and also well-supported and supervised by faculty, then the committee approved it. So, I can't make a blanket approval today, but it definitely fits with that model, and that seems to where the committee is going.
Okay, and you said how many hours for that two-page paper? 10? Is
yeah,
it 10?
right.
Okay.
And if you do 20 hours, that'd be a 4-page paper. And in fact, what we're finding, the 2-page papers historically haven't been very good, particularly in the spirit of doing better evaluation. One of the things we wanted to do, knowing full well that the SACS assessment cycle was maturing on us in our 10-year cycle, was to do better evaluation. We developed a set of questions and a rubric a little under a year ago based on Bloom's taxonomy, the revised taxonomy that the many people are aware of. We did an evaluation of that rubric over the summer and found that we needed to make some tweaks. What we were getting is we were getting service papers that were very, very self-focused. And obviously you want the student focused on the self and learning about the self and service, but there was just too much of it saying, well, I went out, I did this, and then about 3 paragraphs later they said, oh, and this is what I learned from it. I think we undershot the evaluation model by using something we thought was pretty simple. It's an old model from an organization called COOL, the Campus Outreach Opportunity League. And all it was what, so what, now what? What did you do? So what, who cares? And now what? Trying to get them to kick the can down the road a little bit and try to develop a lifestyle of service. Unfortunately, they spent a lot of time on what, and we've turned the corner on that. We now have a tighter rubric that is aimed away from the self. We obviously still want them doing self-evaluation, but not so much a book report approach. This is what I read, this is what I did, and then finally about the last paragraph, they get to something that's really integrated. So we're shooting for higher levels on Bloom's taxonomy, to where it's not just memorization and not just application, because when we start to get into the higher levels of the coursework, we want them to synthesize, we want them to critique and evaluate, and do all those things that again are higher on the taxonomy scale. So the reason I wanted to bring that up is I think we have a better model to share with you if you wanted to embed a service in a course, particularly in a division course.
Is that just, we have to shoot an email to get
Yes.
access to that?
We'd love to send it to you. Yeah, sure.
Mike, could you say just what the steps are to get a project approved?
Sure. If you'll email William or me, William Lamb, or myself, we would love to entertain your ideas. If you have a syllabus that you've already begun to integrate service in, we'll give you feedback on that. Most faculty contact us with an idea, and we love the ideas, and then we'll try to take the ideas, make sure that it fits well with your syllabus, make sure that it's reasonable in terms of the time demands, and then also try to give you some feedback on terms of, again, specific learning objectives, specific projects, and specific evaluative activities. So again, just email one of us. Again, the biggest things are about 10 hours or 20 hours, and you can specify that we're flexible. And if you have any questions at all about a project that might fit or might not fit, please let us know. There are some criteria that might help you out that we've used historically, and if you want to email us that too, if you want us to email it to you too, just let us know. But it is on the Leonard Center section of the website.
If you haven't ever looked at the Leonard Center website, it really does have all this information on it. So if you want to check that out, if you have any questions, something that you don't see on there, but it's got tons of information on it. It's got the response sheets and all that.
We also have resources, if you're interested in them, resources in every discipline we have pretty much. And it talks about how to integrate service in each discipline. So if you ever want to take a look at any of those resources, let us know.
I got the benefit of getting service in one of my classes, and this whole situation created some consequences or implications or concerns in terms of after that, those 10 hours, if a student take another class with service next semester, then they have those hours. I don't know what thoughts or what recommendations you have about that, and how many courses are convenient to have, how often are we supposed to articulate this service when we offer our courses, because kind of like it's a huge thing, and it seems that it should be addressed by the faculty team with the Leonard Center, and then come up with a plan that would give some answers to that, because I don't have an answer, but I always get questions from students, but I did this, I already did that, and I don't know what to do or answer in that point to the student, and I feel frustrated, and I don't know if we have addressed that topic in any discussion.
Years ago, actually one of the things that we did change, I would say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, was there used to be policy from the onset of the program that you could do only 20 hours in a specific project. And we changed that partly because of student and faculty feedback, because students were saying, listen, I've developed a relationship with this agency, with these people, and you're telling me that after I do 20 hours with them, I can't do it anymore, or at least I can still do it but not get credit for it. And I thought it was a very logical argument. So we said, okay, up to 60 hours. And what that means is all of your hours outside of the required 20 in Gateway and Benevolence, you can do in one project. So we don't want to limit students anymore. And we also feel that there may actually be benefits for them to do all of their service in one project over the span of a few years. My dream would be that all 80 hours happen in the curriculum, but that's probably more of a hallucination than a dream. But what I think would be realistic is to have at least one embedded course in each major. And I think that would be a wonderful thing, and maybe even if departmental faculties wanted to sit down and say, okay, hey, is there a place where this fits? And then maybe do a little curricular mapping with all the courses in the major to see if those service embedded experiences fit. And we'd love to do that. Yeah.
Not like a required course.
Right. It's a separate line in terms of the grade report. So if a course is service embedded, you can assign them a grade in the course overall. You can also assign pass-fail on the service embedded part. And then the way that the whole database is designed, it adds up how many hours they have. So the database, behind the screen is saying 10 hours. So that'll add to their total number of hours that they can check through Portico.
Mike, you used two terms, service embedded, service enhanced. Would you go on about that? Because you may not.
Let me ask William to answer that, because they got a more fine-tooth analysis and language for that.
Basically, again, off of what Karen was talking about earlier, if it is a service embedded course, again, we expect that every student who takes that class will be expected to complete that class and the service component. That is also something that, again, as Mike was talking about, the grade of the pass and the fail. If it is, and we do know that we have multiple numbers of, you might have multiple numbers of sections that would also do that, and so we're aware of that as well. And then if it's a service enhanced course, say for example you want to pilot that in the new nursing program, and you might not think that this particular course is going to be applicable for the long haul. Let's pilot one, let's see if it's working, let's see how many students in that class might want to participate in that experience, and then if it is proven to be effective, then we could move that to a service embedded course. A service enhanced course can be easily done with a dialogue between our office and you to see what might work in the way of an approvable service project. Service embedded course actually has to have a signature and has to be approved both at your department level and at the level of the service learning committee. So again, it's a try it.
As we develop, which we are in doing, as we develop and we don't have this at the moment turned into you approved prior to the semester, we can kick it off.
Sure.
And more than likely all of them will participate, and then in retrospect we can go back and say we did this, they all participated, and we have proof of that. Then we could get them service hours for that and then go forward and make that a service embedded class.
Sure.
Yeah,
In-
just
in-
be enhanced
Right.
until
Just
you
we're in a
decide.
difficult spot because we're developing very
Yeah.
quickly in the semester for the semester before, so everything is happening and we may not have time to
Sure.
get you a syllabus
Yeah.
the
You can
semester
finish it
before,
too.
the year before, to get it as a service embedded course, but yet we know through that course we're gonna have these hours and
Right.
they're all gonna participate.
Sure. And again, that's just, give me a call, I'll come over, we'll meet with you guys, sit down and explain all of that and work through that. And we have some courses, a number of courses that actually are now service embedded that did that very same thing.
Do you have a card?
I'll get you one.
Okay.
Some faculty members have actually essentially piloted
Right.
this without working it all into their syllabi, and that's been fine. And again, the good thing about our program is if it's not something that's already built into the course database, then they can just turn it in on the side. So, but again, for us, it's much better to have them reflecting with you as part of their curricular experience. I mean, I'll never say anything different. Having staff read the papers that they turn in is not anywhere close to the kind of learning that we want them to experience with you.
They're gonna be tired of reflecting with us.
Well, my class is, my intro to special ed class is service embedded. And it's not necessarily, they have an assignment that's attached to those service hours, which is a accumulation notebook. And there's certain things they have to have in it. So it's not like, we do talk about their experiences out in the schools when they come to class and questions they may have. There's a time in class we offer that, but I get that notebook. And the way my class is set up, they have to have a C or higher to, actually higher than a C for it to count, so they can go to the next class in special ed. So if they don't complete that notebook, it has enough of a weight that it's gonna mark them down to where they don't pass the class either. So,
We're almost out of time. One more question? All minds clear?
Let me make a quick statement. Between Gateway, RL 200, and all the service embedded and enhanced courses that we have over 100 people teaching something related to service in the course, whether it's, again, somebody doing an overload in Gateway or whatever. So I deeply appreciate that. And I understand, obviously, it takes a little more work to be more specific in a major course. But however we can help you, we would be happy to help.
Thank you.